Hi, everybody, and welcome to Discovery Communications SAP Mobility at Discovery. My name is Alon Raskin. I'm the CTO here at 3i Solutions. We're joined by Tom Lodis, who's Director of Financial and Logistics Systems, and Paul Klawans, Senior SAP Logistics Consultant. Paul and Tom are here to talk about their implementation of the 3i Mobile Workplace Solution. So Paul, if you're there and you're ready to get started, I'm going to hand over to you.
Okay, thanks very much, Alon. Tom is actually going to be going through the first few slides, and then I'll continue from there. So I'm going to go to the next slide for Tom.
Thanks a lot, and thanks, Alon, for having us here today. Let me just give you a real brief overview of what Discovery is. I think most people are familiar with the Discovery channel, but we are here at Discovery, we're the #1 nonfiction media company, and daily we reach more than 1.5 billion cumulative people in over 110 countries in the world. And we are Discovery Channel, but we're also TLC, we're military, we're in joint ventures with the Oprah Winfrey Network, and we're also, we have many more networks globally, and some more notable as being Animal Planet, Science, Investigation ID, Planet Green, and Hub, which is a joint venture with Hasbro. Next slide. Okay, real quickly, Discovery is a SAP shop we implemented it in 2000. Then we did our U.S. implementation that was basically our FI and CO and our asset management, and most of our cash management. We moved throughout the regions in the world. We first attacked, the Europe and we implemented the same modules, and then we went to Asia. What we have done in the past, 5 or 6 years is we have extended our footprint to include project systems, sales and distribution, material management, SRM. BW, we're actually implementing BPC planning as we speak today, and also, the enterprise portal. One of the things that have driven us to go 3i and the need for mobility is that we recently, in 2009, implemented SRM in the small part of our business here. And as in other slides we come up, we'll talk a little more about how we are pushing this footprint globally, and the need to have mobility for approval of shopping carts to make this an application that we can, utilize and to leverage to help us with our operational efficiencies. The ABAP add-ons that we are using today are the Mobile Workplace by 3i, and also the OpenText Vendor Invoice Management, which we implemented last year. We are supporting over 14 languages, and we're in 20 countries. We recently, in the last 2 years, have implemented in India and throughout Europe to our smaller offices, which are now maturing, and it requires an SAP or a financial system to support their operations. We are one global instance here in Silver Spring, Maryland, and our instance, are ECC and SRM, and also with the portal and with BW. We're on the current software levels of ECC 6.04, and for SRM 7.0. As we speak today, we are also going to upgrade to the ECC 6.5 and SRM 7.01 in May of this year. So going back to talking about with the implementation of SRM, we did implement in 2009, and it covered only 8% of our spend. There was not a real need for a mobility solution at this point, but after our successful implementation of SRM, we did look to push this out in 2011, 2012 to cover all our spend within our company. We actually went to a no PO, no pay policy. And what part of that is that we needed to have a mobility solution to help our business, have an operational efficiency within a proven shopping carts. We have a lot of people that travel. We had when we first implemented, we did not have this functionality in place. There was a huge amount of support by from our group to redirect shopping carts to appropriate people to do approvals for people that weren't available or through a laptop or get into our network to do approvals. So the mobility solution really became a necessary business driver for us. As you can see that, we have a very complex shopping cart approval. Right now we have 6 levels of shopping cart approval that goes from a buyer, cost center owners, to asset approvals when we have to have a purchase that may be capitalized, a DOA that is required by SOX for us to have the proper approval to approve the expenditures, and also we have a legal requirement to push anything with a contract to our legal group, and also we have a CFO level approval that different CFOs throughout our networks require at various levels to do approvals. So with that said, we're hitting a lot of executives within the company, and this requires us to have the ability for them to have mobile approval. And we looked throughout the marketplace, and we looked at Go3i as a solution for us. And Paul, I'll pass over to Paul, and he'll give some key criteria that we're looking for, because we had to make this simple. We want to have it quickly rolled out, and Go3i is looking at most of the solutions on the marketplace to fulfill these needs.
Thank you, Tom. So we did an extensive research when selecting our mobile solution partner. We evaluated probably 6 competitor products, and when we did our RFP and when we did our internal criteria, what you see here are the criteria we use in evaluating all of the solutions. First and foremost, the solution had to be an SAP certified solution. We do not, here at Discovery, implement solutions that are not SAP certified solutions. The solution had to work with any SAP solution, ECC, SRM, BW. We may be implementing CRM at some point in the future. We may implement Solution Manager at some point in the future. You never really know. So whatever the solution we chose had to work with any SAP offered solution. Another key criteria was that the users should not be required to download or install an application on their device. The solution had to deploy quickly. The solution had to support a wide range of BlackBerry and iOS devices. At the time, we did not have Android in our landscape, but it appears as though that is going to be a future requirement, which 3i obviously will also support. We did not want to have additional skills required from our SAP team, so we were expecting that the solution would be supported through ABAP or BSP technology or any other technology that would already be available from our SAP staff. And the solution had to be offline capable. So those are the criteria that we evaluated when evaluating our vendors. So why did we choose 3i? First of all, 3i is an SAP certified independent software vendor. All software delivery comes through the standard SAP transactions, SPAM and SAINT, so that as we upgrade the Go3i solution, and for our initial installation, all we had to do was run standard SAP transactions, and it runs like any other SAP installation, which is a critical point for us. Obviously, this solution deployed very quickly for us. The proof of concept was completed in really less than 10 days. It utilizes all of our existing infrastructure, the BES servers. We use CA SiteMinder as our single sign-on solution. We use Junos for our VPN solution. And 3i had no problem integrating directly with those other software providers. There were no additional hardware costs because this is basically using our existing infrastructure. We had no concerns for load balancing, disaster recovery, upgrades, hot packs, support packs, because again, the 3i solution sits on the ABAP stack and is like any other SAP solution that you're going to deploy. A very critical solution component of this solution is that there are no new SOX requirements based on the implementation. Um, the other benefit to the deployment was that the 3i solution integrates with SAP security authorization concept. 3i has its own SAP authorization objects, so we can quickly integrate that into our existing security solution. Users were not required to download or install anything on their device before the first approval. So I want to talk about this as a key criteria for us and why this was a really distinguishing component or feature of the 3i solution. As Tom mentioned, we have many senior executives in our company who are approving shopping cart documents. Those shopping cart documents are very large dollar value documents, and our executives obviously are not always at their desk. They're traveling extensively. We have found that our executives would not take the time to download some sort of application or go to an app store. We just thought that was an unrealistic expectation of our executives. They needed a solution where it would appear on their device and they could follow a link in an email and it would take them to do the necessary tasks that they had to do. And 3i was the only solution that we evaluated that had that type of functionality, where a user basically gets the inbox from 3i downloaded directly to their device without any additional actions that would be required. So that was a huge reason we chose the 3i solution. Another component is that the solution from 3i supports many different types of devices and many different operating system levels. So domestically within the United States, we mainly have users that are using BlackBerry 5 and 6. 6 and 7. In Europe, our users are using BlackBerry 5 and 6. As I mentioned earlier, we have Androids that are being introduced into the landscape, and many of our executives are using iPads, iPhones, iTouches, and that's used globally. So we required a solution that was going to work with any of these devices and all of these devices. And from the SAP team's perspective, it needed to be a simple maintenance. We didn't want to have to test each and every single device, every single operating system, every single level. It needed to be something that we can maintain simply, centrally from Silver Spring. Building on that point, like many of you, we do not have a large SAP support staff. So we were not looking for a tool that required us to learn a new development language. So we do not have Java skills in-house. We do not have C skills in-house. These are some other skills that some of the other solutions require you to have. We are basically an SAP shop. We know ABAP, we know ABAP OO, we know BSP, but we don't know Java. We're not HTML programmers. The Go3i solution did not require any of that type of knowledge to implement and support their technology. The Go3i solution utilizes ABAP, it utilizes VADI implementations, utilizes standard SAP functions, RFC destinations, external aliases. That is the core component of this solution. It is truly an SAP-centric solution. Finally, this solution was offline capable. We needed the ability to give our executives the functionality to review this information while not physically connected to our network. So the 3i solution offers that flexibility and functionality that if the users are online, that's great. They can affect the approval immediately. If they're offline, that's also not a problem. If they're on the plane, if they're on a train, if they're traveling somewhere without network connectivity, they can still evaluate the shopping cart documents. They can affect the approval, and the next time they're connected to the network, the approval will be processed like any other approval. So let's talk a little bit about the infrastructure and architecture that was implemented for our solution here at Discovery. So I've got two slides I'm going to be covering next. The first one is the BlackBerry architecture, and the slide after that we'll talk through the iOS architecture. So basically our process is such that when a workflow agent or user must approve a shopping cart, that user receives an email from our SRM system. That email goes to their BlackBerry devices. So on their BlackBerry device, we have a link in the email that basically tells the user, if you're on a laptop or a desktop, click this link. Alternately, if you're on a BlackBerry, click this link. When they click that link, they're taken to their mobile workplace inbox on their BlackBerry device. The beauty of the BlackBerry architecture is that the BES server provides the authentication and the input into the Discovery intranet. So basically, the BES server is providing the access and authentication required to get into the SAP system. So as you can see from the slide, we have our ECC system, we have our SRM system, and we have the SAP Java stack. That is communicating with the BES server. The BES server is going through the firewall and going to the BlackBerry devices. So the communication is completely secure, and that security is basically controlled through the BES server. So the communication is completely secure, and the users, when they effect the approval on their BlackBerry device, it appears in SRM that they are logged into SRM. You couldn't tell by looking at a shopping cart that they came through their BlackBerry or whether they did it through the SAP portal. So moving on to the next slide, to talk about the iOS infrastructure for your iPad, your iTouch, and your iPhones. This is a little bit different because the iOS devices do not provide you the same functionality because there's no BES server component. So we've implemented the Junos Pulse VPN technology. The VPN technology, again, provides you with that secure environment from your iOS device. So once the VPN is on, then from your iPad or your iPhone, you're effectively in the Discovery intranet and on our network. From that, you have a secure connection to provide the approval through the 3i technology. And again, just to add to what I mentioned earlier, we're using our existing infrastructure. We did not have to purchase additional hardware to accomplish this. We didn't have to, other than the 3i software, we didn't have to purchase any additional software to support this. And again, this is all supported through our SAP team. There's no other additional support requirements to roll out or implement this particular solution. So I want to talk a little bit about the implementation. Basically, the implementation went very smoothly. We implemented SAP baddies to add the Go3i link to our shopping cart approval emails. We implemented baddies within the Go3i solution to customize the look and feel of the user interface on the BlackBerry. We integrated the iOS devices using Active Directory since our users did not know their SAP passwords using CA SiteMinder. So an important aspect for us is many of our users internally don't know their SAP passwords. They log into the SAP portal using single sign-on solutions using CA SiteMinder and Active Directory. So we had a challenge with the 3i implementation to make sure that the 3i solution also supported single sign-on. We accomplished this, as I mentioned, using Active Directory and CA SiteMinder. So this is just another example of how 3i lets you leverage your existing investments to implement their solutions, and you don't have to invest in any other additional hardware or infrastructure costs. So we have here some feedback from our VP of Procurement, Andrew Barton, talking about why this rollout was so successful for us. So as you can see, Discovery utilizes a 3i solution for the on-the-go approvals of SRM shopping carts across our domestic operations. As a global company in a 24/7 meeting environment, 3i allows approvers to continue managing business operations anywhere, anytime from their mobile devices.
Yeah. I'd like to, just add here, the feedback from our user community has been very positive. I think more than being positive, we don't hear too much from our user community. This has been, we do have an occasional person that, has a problem. that has to do with, something on our BlackBerry that's not related to Go3i that we may have to troubleshoot. But we have done, and I'm not sure what the statistics are, but we are probably in the thousands of shopping carts been approved by the Go3i solution, and it's been very positive coming back.
Yeah, we've had actually, I heard one anecdotal example of an executive who was receiving 20 or so shopping cart approvals a week, and that person could control the number of approvals based on a dollar value threshold, and he was considering increasing that dollar value threshold to lower the number of shopping cart approvals he was receiving on a weekly basis. After the implementation of Go3i, and he found how easy it was to approve from his BlackBerry device, he decided to lower his threshold so he could see more shopping carts. That's how much this user enjoyed and found effective the mobile approval application that we deployed. So, and just to build on what Tom said, I'm basically the one who's hearing the complaints from users when we roll out new functions like this, and I can maybe count on one hand the number of challenges that we've had related to this implementation, and we have approved more than probably 1,500 shopping carts in the last 3 months using the 3i solution. So we have no complaints whatsoever from our user community.
So what's our next steps with Go3i? One of the first, we just recently rolled out project systems to help us with the management of our content productions, and this is where the majority of our spend is within Discovery. So with this, part of our one of the things that we have automated through the portal was the project approval. Once we rolled out the project systems, the first feedback we received was, why can I approve shopping carts for SRM, but I cannot do it for project systems? We had a list of post-implementation enhancements that we wanted to do. Some of them were critical from reporting and such, but what our project team or our business partners on the project system side did was put mobile approval on the top. This was something that they see that was a necessity, since most of the approvals are on executive level. They needed to get, increase the time that they turn around the approvals. And now we're hoping within the next week or so to roll out this, the project systems approval. We did this in approximately 2 to 3 weeks, this next approval step. And, this is a real big gain for the IT department to be able to have a quick, flexible solution to roll it out to other areas for approvals. And second is that we have been receiving feedback from HR now that they want to do mobile approvals. We're actually right now investigating the solution that Go3i just put out on the marketplace. We have our HR group sitting through some webinars, like you are sitting through webinars today, looking for evaluating the product. And this is something that we probably will look to implement sometime in the near future. So I'll pass it back to you, Alon.
Excellent, gentlemen. Thank you, Paul, Tom. I appreciate the insight into the mobility initiative there at Discovery. I'm just going to go through a few slides giving an overview of the mobile workplace solution, and then we'll jump into the questions. So a little bit about our product, and I'm not going to go into too much detail. I think that will be should be reserved for a different webinar. So mobile workplace was designed with the following principles. When we built this product in our app, and we built it from the ground up, we wanted to make sure that we leave the existing SAP processes intact. One of the things we did at Discovery when we came in is we explained that you're not going to need to change your workflow approval process. They had a very complicated SRM shopping cart, and we didn't want to have to ask them to make any changes at all to their existing approval process, so that what they had in production remained exactly the same. We did not touch or anything, because they spend a lot of time developing and testing it. so we didn't want to have to go through that whole process. As Paul mentioned and Tom mentioned, that we are ABAP based, so we try to leverage the standard SAP configuration tables, the configuration tables that we deliver, and we use baddies and various sort of functionality that standard ABAPers are familiar with to deploy these SAP functionality. And we don't introduce any new hardware. That was touched upon by Tom and Paul as well. We don't require any new hardware or any new software except for our own, which is installed on the ABAP stack. And then we try to leverage as much as possible the existing investment of the client. Next slide, please. So, currently out of the box, we are supporting the BlackBerry, Android, and iPhone, which is really any of the iOS devices, so that's iTouch and iPads as well. And we are planning on adding Windows Phone to that in 2012. We support all the SAP modules running on the SAP NetWeaver platform. So that means anything, whether it's CRM, ECC, SRM, Solution Manager, what have you. Really, the scenario is irrelevant for our solution. We are offline capable. That's a very, very important feature. That means our solution works online and offline. When you look at some of our competitors, you'll find that various offerings that they offer are not necessarily offline capable, which means you can really only use it when you have a connection. To me, that's not really mobile. You're not really mobile if you're tethered to the network. We support SAP and non-SAP scenarios as well. We have customers that integrate non-SAP systems using our solution. We have a very customizable look and feel. So that means that because of our architecture, excuse me, because of our architecture, we are able to change different colors, fonts, logos, what have you. That's all very doable, and it's all done on the ABAP server itself. And we do have solutions for single sign-on for the various different platforms. Next slide, please. So this was really the out-of-the-box scenario out-of-the-box solution that we provide, and workflow approvals framework. And Discovery is used for both SRM and ECC. So they use project systems, which is in ECC, and the shopping cart functionality in SRM. And we've been deployed in various different modules. It can be materials management, FI, really CRM. Really, the scenario is almost irrelevant. And we even support non-SAP approval scenarios. So if you have a third-party product, maybe it's something custom that you've developed in-house, or whether it's, PeopleSoft or Oracle, what have you, we can integrate with non-SAP scenarios as well. Next slide, please. We also deliver an ABAP-based toolkit, which allows the ABAPers to develop mobile applications using mobile workplace. That means an ABAPer, not a mobile developer, but an ABAPer can build out these screens and deploy them to mobile devices directly using 3i's mobile workplace. Next slide, please. As Tom and Paul had mentioned in their section of the webinar, we have recently released the My Mobile HR for SAP ERP HCM solution that was jointly developed with HCI IT, and it provides a range of functionality of employee self-service out of the box, and that's essentially things like timesheet entry, leave request, of course approvals, which comes standard anyway. Pay stub history, and what have you. And all of that is out of the box. There's actually a separate webinar for that. We also deliver a charting toolkit, which can draw data from really any source, whether it's SAP or non-SAP, and we can create dashboards and various reports and charting functionality. It's all very interactive. You can zoom in, zoom out. You can, drill down on all the various areas and have some very nice charts and dashboards. Next slide, please. Okay, well let's just jump to the questions. Let me just pull them up, and I think we'll start off with a question to Tom. Approximately how many users is Discovery rolling this solution out to? I know that the initial SRM phase, and then now there's this project systems implementation. Do you know roughly how many approvers we're looking at?
Yeah, currently we're using, we have 650 users, give or take some, on the system. That changes day to day. And that's just for our SRM solution. We're actually rolling this out SRM internationally. and we will probably pick up another 200 users. And with the project systems, we're probably in another 300 users that will be accessing the system.
Okay, right. Okay, great. So roughly, I don't know, I did a very rough calculation in my head. I think we're looking at 1,100 or so users in total once this goes global. Okay. Tom, just a question. You guys mentioned that the rollout was done for BlackBerry and iOS devices. Are these personal devices or are these company issued?
I believe most of the BlackBerry devices are company owned. Now, when you get into the iOS devices, that's a mix between corporate and private users.
Okay, right. So you do have sort of like an informal BYOD program internally,
Yeah.
and at least for iPhones and what have you. Are there iPads out there as well?
Yes, there are iPads out there, and people are using those. It's more and more every day.
Okay, of course. Tom, what kind of training, and this might even be a question for Paul, so I don't know, what kind of training did Discovery provide to the end users?
We did have a really formal training, but we did work with our training department to put out a QRC as an end user guide, and we made it available to the users. It was pretty intuitive, so there wasn't a need to do formalized training, and especially since they're executives, you're not going to get an executive into a IT training room. So it was just a simple, it's just simply when it's launched, it's on your device, and you click on it, and it takes you to the selected work, and you select your worked item. So it wasn't a real need. That was the beauty of this, was that we didn't have to do training.
Okay, great. It's nice and intuitive. That's nice. Paul, during the implementation phase, what kind of issues did you guys hit, and how did you address those?
So we found one issue on the Java stack where the part of the Go3i solution is implemented, and we had to implement an OSS node specifically for our particular Java release. We had SSO issues, which I spoke about earlier. That wasn't really an issue. It wasn't difficult. It was just more time consuming to understand how we're going to implement the solution with our existing CA SiteMinder single sign-on solution. We found one or two issues as it relates to the data rendering on the devices, but that was basically fixed by our ABAP team. So,
Right.
Basically we didn't really have significant solutions and the significant issues, and the issues we did have were resolved by our internal ABAP team.
Okay.
We had some initial issues getting the solution implemented correctly, but I think if the folks doing the implementation had followed the documentation provided, it would have been smoother. Let's put it that way.
Understood. I'm going to open this next question up to either of you. I'm not sure who wants to answer it, but in the presentation you mentioned that there's really no concerns over disaster recovery or load balancing or even SOX or anything like that. Can you elaborate a little bit further on why that was the case?
Sure. I think I mentioned this earlier, Alon, is that we're not really installing anything new. There's no new hardware. The only new thing we're installing is additional ABAP code into our existing ABAP installation. So as it relates to disaster recovery or load balancing, we already have disaster recovery in place for our entire SAP system. We already have load balancing in place for our existing SAP system. We already have SOX controls in place for our existing SAP change management and all that good stuff. So there really was no additional concerns because it's already covered. We are implementing just any other SAP solution.
Okay, got it. Yeah, so it's just part of the existing landscape, like you mentioned. Paul, I wanted to just drill down on one thing that you mentioned earlier on, which was one of the key features, one of the key criteria that you really liked about Mobile Workplace was the fact that users didn't need to download or install anything. And as you mentioned, this is quite a unique feature for Mobile Workplace. Explain to me exactly, how that was, why was that so useful to Discovery? I think you did touch upon it. I'd just like you to elaborate a little further.
Sure. So our initial scenario was approval-based scenarios, shopping carts and project systems. So we didn't really need any integration with the hardware on the device, like file access or camera integration, calendar integration. All we needed was a solution that worked online and offline, and was easily deployed. So mobile workplace gave us all of those things. We understand that a client is now available, so if you ever need to do things like camera integration or file access, we can do that. But this is a very unique feature of the mobile solutions that are in the workplace right now. Basically, we didn't find another mobile solution that did not require the user to go to an app store or an administrator to push something to the devices. That ran in addition to the existing software. So this was a really differentiating feature and function of the 3i solution.
Right, right. And I know you've been live for a few months. You mentioned there's been about 1,500 carts. The support load for your ABAP team has been, what's it been like?
I would say it's been zero. I mean, this is one of the more silent implementations I've ever been associated with. I think people were really looking forward to the solution before it came out, and they've been using it extensively since we've gone live. And the only issue we've had is when a user changed their email address, and the email address is the key for the connection between the Bez server and the Java stack. And the Bez server had a new email address, and the Java stack had the old one. Other than that, we have not had any issues whatsoever.
Excellent. I'm very pleased to hear that. Anyway, gentlemen, thank you very much for your time. I appreciate the insight, and we look forward to rolling out some further scenarios together.
Great. Thanks a lot, Alon.
Thanks a lot, Alon.
Thanks, guys.